was Christ doing so wrong on the disciples? Let's leave it in the context, in the New Testament. Was he doing anything wrong?
No, sir.
Right? He was just preaching salvation and letting the northern kingdom and southern kingdom know that we need to come back as one nation.
Hey, and one more thing, doing great works, doing miracles, doing great works. And while we're not doing miracles today, great works are being
Well, we are doing miracles, right?
Well,
because we have people that are leaving the street,
right,
leaving the world.
Well, I meant water to wine type stuff, but you're right. In a way, that is like some miraculous stuff.
Right. Okay, we're not healing people, rising people from the dead, but we are rising people from the dead, right?
Yes, sir.
Because we're spiritually dead as a people.
Right.
Right? We are doing miracles. It's just not at that level. But the point I'm making is this. What were they doing so wrong? They had massive hatred. For the same people that were teaching the law, statutes, and commandments that were charged with that had much hatred for this man and the men that he rode with. You really need to think about that. When Christ said those spirits are going to be here in the last days, he wasn't lying. What are we doing so wrong in IUIC? Think about that. What we help people. People that have come, we've helped people many monetarily, spiritually, scripturally. What have we really done so bad that this hatred is here? This is why, piggybacking off of what he said, you have to look at what's going down. It takes me aback, all of this. But when I look at it spiritually, I'm like, what were they doing so wrong? And they weren't even saying that Esau's the devil. They weren't teaching none of that stuff then. They were just waking up the people. So you got to look at all of that. Whenever y'all ready to make a decision that, I don't know about IUIC, think about that. What is IUIC really doing wrong?
Right. Christ really wasn't going in on the Romans. It was after Christ's death that they started blasting Rome and you know, Paul and John, you talk about it, right? A lot of times they're referring to Rome and Esau, obviously chief in that. But Christ really wasn't blasting who was he really going in on?
Us.
Right? Right? The hatred is at a level, you guys ain't even privy to a lot of the stuff that we are, but the hatred is at such a level that every day is something new. Am I wrong?
Yeah. No, you're right. You're right. And this is why, you know, in topic to the class, this is why I say it's ridiculous that we're going to let the cares of this world slow us down. And I mean, you're not going to slow down the Lord's plan. But, you know, when the scripture talks about serve great men with ease, some of y'all just making it harder for the men that have this goes back to the ministering and everything. I don't know, read this again. Read verse 20 again.
1 Kings 19, verse 20. And he left the oxen and ran after Elijah and said, Let me, I pray thee, kiss my father and my mother, and then will I follow thee. And he said unto him, Go back again, for what have I done to thee?
And it's funny, you know, as I'm looking at that now, I didn't think about it last night, I was preparing the class, but I'm looking at it now. You have people that are saying, you know, we tell people to cut off their family. No, that's not the spirit. Even Elijah, when he called Elisha, when he said, what have I done to thee? He's saying, basically, am I forbidding you to go say bye to your mom and dad? He's like, trust me, we're about to travel and do some work, but I'm not telling you to cut them off. Right? No, not in that sense. What do we say? The scripture says, when you're among the indiscreet, be mindful of the time. So if you're among unbelievers, you shouldn't be spending a lot of time with them. If you are, you got to keep it real brief and stuff like that. If you're seeking to fellowship a lot with unbelievers, you got to examine yourself and where you stand, right? And I don't care if that's mother, brother, aunt, uncle, sister, right? But we're not saying cut your whole family off. No, he said, listen, you want to go and bid them farewell? Nobody, you don't know. By your works, they might repent. Anyway, so let's go back. Read verse 21.
Verse 21. And he returned back from him, and took a yoke of oxen, and slew them, and boiled their flesh with the instruments of the oxen, and gave unto the people, and they did eat. Then he arose and went after Elijah, and ministered unto him.
Right, so it says, he went back to his family, he had like a feast with them, he broke bread with them, right? And then he left. So he made his amends, right? He left behind and put those things behind and made peace with it. Not just a family peace, but he put off the weak nature and he put off childish things. And a lot of times we look at childish and we think PlayStation and sports and things like that. But some of the characteristics of children you got to really look at, right? Let me get 1 Corinthians 13 and 11, and I want to look something up. When you do that, I'm going to get my definition here. And read that first.
1 Corinthians chapter 13, verse 11. When I was a child, I spake as a child. I understood as a child. I thought as a child. But when I became a man, I put away childish things.
Now notice, he's not saying I played as a child, I did this as a child. His emphasis is on a different type of characteristic. He's talking about the childish mentality. Read it again.
When I was a child, I spake as a child. I understood as a child.
Go ahead.
I thought as a child.
I thought as a child. Go ahead.
But when I became a man, I put away childish things.
You become a man when you start to really be about this walk, right? I said, man up, Jacob. When you start to meet the characteristics of your forefathers, right? And I started with the physicality, so we don't think I'm going some Christian route with this, all right? Bold as a lion, all right? The way our forefathers were. That's something, I know, at Mariah, we always talk about, like, we love the stuff with the mighty man and all that stuff. That thing is, like, powerful. Like, you're like, damn. It's a reminder in all the hatred of how base we are and everything else, how great and mighty we really are. And we have living examples of it in these scriptures. But now when you start to get to Elisha, that's why I started with, understand that he was a warrior as well, because he was forced to slay certain people, right? That weren't in righteousness. But he also now are going to get into those other characteristics that's necessary as a man. So when we read childish, all right, so you have that up, scroll down a little, and then there'll be a thing that says, so hit the arrow, so where it says translations or whatever, then hit more. No, go up, you were there, and then hit more. See it right there to the right, next to purulate. Of juvenile, purulate, more, okay. Click more. Okay, good. So, it says, of like or appropriate to a child. Antonym is an adult, meaning that there's, right? To be a full adult means the childish thing is gone, right? And to be an adult in the spirit is to grow up into that fullness and stature of Christ, which we've gone over recently in a couple classes. Silly and immature. Now, I like the synonyms, and the one that I want is fatuous. It's next to a name. Click on it. Fatuous. All right? And it says silly and pointless. Silly and pointless. And this is good. I like this, right? As a matter of fact, I'm going to take it a step further. Go ahead and look for pointless as a definition. All right? Putting away childish things, when you're called to do work in this truth, right? You want to know what's pointless? I'm not going to go because I got to sit down and watch this show. I'm not going to read my Bible because I need to read every comment on Facebook that's going on. I can't do this assignment or that assignment because I'm overwhelmed with everything that's going on in my life. That's childish behavior. That's not an adult. Those things are pointless. So when it says put away childish things, to the extent, understand, nobody's telling you, right? Some brothers will be like, well, you know, I ain't going to have a job. I'm going to work full time in the truth. Ain't nobody on this earth at this point. Childish is not just things like PlayStation and games or whatever. Remember, Paul said thoughts. And a childish thought is that, hey, you're not bold enough, you're not strong enough, you don't have the Lord on your side to let me just, listen, it says great travail is on the sons of Adam from the womb. It's never going to be the right time. You're never going to get over what obstacles you have. Because guess what's going to happen? Once that's cleared, the next one's going to come. And once that cleared, the scripture says, be in pain and labor to bring forth. Meaning, it's never going to be just right. You're going to be tired. You're going to lose sleep. You're going to be stressed. You're going to have work piling up. Your wife and kids going to be mad because you've been too busy. And guess what you got to do? You got to find balance. You got to figure out a way to do it. And the way to do it shouldn't be to sacrifice what the Lord's doing. You gotta, I can't guide you more than what the scripture says. But we have many responsibilities. We must, even first and foremost, of pushing this truth. But guess what? At the same time, you gotta be a good husband. You gotta be a good father. You gotta be an example to the nation. You gotta be a counselor. You gotta be a taskman. You gotta be the head of whatever department you're over. You gotta coon at the job. Right? You got to deal with all of that. Nobody said this thing was going to be easy. It's never going to be. This is not our rest. Meaning, listen, the little break you get, if you take a little vacation, you take a little trip, you watch a little TV, that's all that is. That's a little break. When the preponderance of what you do or the issues that you're dealing with has you so handicapped that you can't get simple things done, you really need to examine where you stand and what's really first in your life. And that's not the spirit of Elisha. That's not a man. You may be a man physically. You may be a bad mofo. Real macho. But you're weak mentally. You're weak spiritually. Some of you are weak emotionally. It don't make no sense. Go ahead.
Let's go to 1 Corinthians 9, verse 16. Real quick. Just to piggyback off what Captain Joshua was saying. 1 Corinthians 9, verse 16.
1 Corinthians 9, verse 16. For though I preach the gospel, I have nothing to glory of, for necessary is laid upon me, yea, woe is unto me if I preach not the gospel.
So it's not our jobs to be forever students. It's our jobs to obtain a certain level of knowledge and then teach those that are without the knowledge of Christ. It's our necessity. That's the contract that we sign with Christ's blood. All right? We all said yea at the very beginning. No one bucked up against what the Lord said, right? But read verse 17.
For if I do this willingly, I have a reward.
I've been in this truth for 7 years. And I'll go on record to say there's no one good thing. There's no one thing that I'm good at. I'm not good at any one thing in particular. I think that my spiritual gift, honestly, is the fact that I have a willing spirit. That's it. That's it. I'm not the best at reading. I'm not the best at teaching. I'm not the best at prophesying. I'm not the best at any administration that I'm over. But I have the willing spirit to do it. That's how we all have to be in this walk. Not make excuses, but be willing to just do the work and make the sacrifice, because then you'll have a reward.
I just want you to understand that your definition of childish, the definitions are much broader and they're more encompassing. And Paul, as I said, when I was a child, I played with toys. I was a child. You got to realize that it's childish, right? This is why I like fatuous, which is a synonym of childish, that says pointless things. And things that are pointless, that there's not going to be a resolution, there's not going to be anything to, nothing. When the scripture says nothing should separate you from the love of Christ, it doesn't just mean, it's talking about all these little things. You should not be so handicapped by something that's going on in your life that you can't do what you need to get done. You can. Yes, little breaks, little pauses, but I mean, you got to keep moving. You got to keep going forward, right? So read verse 21 again in Kings.
1 Kings chapter 19, verse 21. And he returned back from him, and took a yoke of oxen, and slew them, and boiled their flesh with the instruments of the oxen, and gave unto the people, and they did eat. Then he arose and went after Elisha, and ministered unto him.
All right. So now it says, Elisha was called to go after him, and I don't want to be contradictory to what Cap brought out about the teaching and stuff, but Elisha understood that his role was to minister to Elijah. Now I want you to look up minister. And I want the verb, not the noun. It says, attend to the needs of someone. Attend to the needs of someone. My job is to attend, as a captain of 1,000, is to attend to the needs of the deacons and the bishops. And I have certain direct assignment to the bishop that I deal with him. And his needs doesn't mean bring him a cup of water. His needs can mean the departments that I'm over, right? And I need to fulfill that role. These guys' jobs and all the captains under me are to minister unto me. Meaning, I'll get an assignment, and sometimes it comes direct from the bishop, sometimes it comes from a deacon, and I need to have them act on it. And if they don't do it, there's a breakdown in the structure and order of what we're trying to accomplish. Because no one man can handle all the tasks. Right? This goes into the eye, the hand, right? You have certain fingers. Without your pinky toes, you won't have balance. Without both ears, your hearing's off. Without both eyes, your vision is different. Right? All of it needs to work, right? All in perfection to the working of the Most High's will. So a soldier's job is to minister to the officer of 10. An officer of 10 ministers to the 20. So on and so forth, all the way up the chain. And minister, the needs is not my car, car, my house, this, that, and the other. Listen, if y'all need help and stuff like that, that's a separate thing, right? That should just be brotherly love stuff. That shouldn't be addressed. But I can't overestimate the Negro mind. So I have to go out of my way and put these disclaimers, right? So, you know, I got to go ahead and make sure that I'm there. But to minister is the offices that you have. Your administration, I said this earlier, and I'll say it again, and I'll probably say it again even on the next part. Your administration, the stuff that I assign to him allows me to do the other things that I need to do. If I got to stop those things to do something that they should be doing, guess what starts to happen? Kinks in the armor, a breakdown in the whole chain of things, right? If I got to stop certain things, if I don't do something the bishop needs, guess what he has to do? If he has to do something himself, that's less time that the most knowledgeable man that we have in our body is out there spreading this word in the way that only he can. And I know we're all teachers and we all have an impact. But listen, we understand. Everybody gets excited when the bishop about to do something here on the show, and rightly so, right? That's a man that has 30 plus years in this walk. You want to talk about the definition of an elder, right? I mean, the brother has lived it. So you have to understand the ministering piece has to be there, all right? The job is to minister. And later we're going to go into, actually, let me see, we might be going into it now. Let me just double check. Let me make sure that's it. No, later we're going to go into it. Let me get Romans 11 and 1. We're going to go into the scripture later where it talks about the widow's fund and everything set up. That's Acts, right? And it tells you the apostles are like, should we wait on tables? Right? Meaning there has to be, the task that you have that may seem so mundane allows the other brothers that have the administrations and the gifts that you don't have or don't yet have to do what the Lord needs them to do. And when you can't fulfill that role, there's a breakdown in the whole body. There's a humongous ripple effect in how everything else is impacted. Because you're taking time away from things that other brothers are good at. Not to say that they're not good at the other tasks, but remember, always understand that to minister, right, is to fulfill the needs of someone else. Your job is to minister all the way. And guess what? We minister down too. I'm a servant to everybody here, right? Whether it's for counsel, whether it's for guidance, instruction, even just to be an example, whatever it is. And that way, I'm ministering that way as well, all right? Get Romans 11 and 1.
The book of Romans, chapter 11, verse 1. I say then, hath God cast away his people? God forbid. For I also am an Israelite, of the seed of Abraham, of the tribe of Benjamin.
Come on.
God hath not cast away his people, which he foreknew. Well, yet not what the scripture saith of Elias?
Of Elijah, go ahead.
How he maketh intercession to God against Israel, saying, Lord, they killed thy prophets, and dig down thine altars, and I am left alone, and they seek my life.
Go ahead.
But what saith the answer of God unto him? I have reserved to myself 7,000 men, who have not bowed the knee and to the image of Baal.
So I went here so that you can see Paul is using this for his example in Romans, all right? What we're just reading in Kings. And he's telling you we're not alone, that there's a reserved number. So this is why we don't really stress somebody. If somebody's not meeting a role, we'll try somebody else in it. Because until we find the one that the Lord has reserved to do the work. Go ahead, read.
Even so then, at this present time also, there is a remnant according to the election of grace.
It says, just like then in Elijah's time, even in this time, there is a remnant. Just like then. Can the real men of Israel stand up? And don't go stand up unless you're sure. Some brothers try to stand up and be funny. No, don't do it. You a good brother. I don't know yet. I don't know. I don't know. Right? Listen, that was rhetorical. All right? The point is we got to get our spirits to the point where the ones that are really real about this start to manifest themselves. Satan is on high level alert and attacking left and right. So we need to attack back contrary-wise what? We need to beat back the mouth of the dragon and all of Satan's devices by continuing to push this truth forth. Right? He said we must, like he was bringing out in Corinthians, we must bring this forth and not let that beat us down. There is a set number. In that time, it was 7,000. Now we know it's 144 from each tribe. They are in reserve. We just trying to find them, right? It's like the Matrix with the pods. When they were searching for the one, he goes, and we tried this one, and it wasn't him, and we tried that one. And then they still weren't sure about him. And he always doing some bad things, right? So you're all right, Eliezer. You're doing some good stuff, but I don't know if you're one of those one yet. I don't know if I'm one of them one, right? And we'll never know until that day. But guess what? You should act like it.
Right.
You should act like it. Before you become something, you got to have the mindset of that thing, right? Go back. Go back. Let's read verse 5 again.
Verse 5. Even so then at this present time also there is a remnant according to the election of grace.
There is a remnant even at this time. Just like then, same thing now. Let's get 1 Kings 19 and 18. We're coming back to Romans.
1 Kings chapter 19 verse 18. Yet have I left me 7,000 in Israel, all the knees which have not bowed unto Baal, and every mouth which have not kissed him.
Right? So there was a remnant. So let's go back to Romans 9, and I want verse 27.
The book of Romans chapter 9 and verse 27. Elias also crieth concerning Israel, though the number of the children of Israel be as the sand of the sea, a remnant shall be saved.
Right? So he's telling you here, same thing. A remnant shall be saved. Even though there's a whole bunch of Israel, only a remnant will be saved. A remnant is those real men. It's those real brothers that are going to stand up and stand for the Lord. Go ahead, read on.
For he will finish the work and cut it short in righteousness, because a short work will the Lord make upon the earth. And as Isaiah said before, except the Lord of Shabbat had left us a seed, we had been as Sodom, and we had been like unto Gomorrah.
So even though you may see terrible things, you may see some people going through ups and downs or whatever, it says, understand that that remnant is there. And if that remnant, that 144 was not there, he goes, then you could say that we have no hope. He says, then we'd be like Sodom and be made like unto Gomorrah. But understanding that this thing is going to happen in the earth through these real men, through these mighty men that need to be built up and stand up. And it might be any one of you. It might be any one of us. But we're never going to know if we don't start getting serious about it. You can't just wake up one day and say, you know, hey, I'm a mighty man. Right? There's actions that have to have them behind it. And you got to believe it. You really got to believe that thing. Just going back to the beginning. Goliath believed he was unbeatable. Guess what? So did David. Even though there was a stark contrast in how they were equipped, the weapons they had, and even in their stature. But he believed it, and he rose to that occasion. He was able to overcome. All right? Get me 2 Kings 2 and 1. Real men and real leaders are going to guide us. That 144 elect. 2 Kings 2 and 1.
The book of 2 Kings, chapter 2 and verse 1. And it came to pass, when the Lord would take up Elijah into heaven by a whirlwind, that Elijah went with Elisha from Gilgal. And Elijah said unto Elisha, tarry here, I pray thee, for the Lord hath sent me to Bethel. And Elisha said unto him, as the Lord liveth, and as thy soul liveth, I will not leave thee. So they went down to Bethel.
Elisha was loyal. He was loyal. He knew Elijah was coming to his end. The Lord was going to take him up by a whirlwind. And he said, listen, as the Lord liveth, meaning of a surety, right? Because the Lord does live, that he is going to be with Elijah till the end. Go ahead.
And the sons of the prophets that were at Bethel came forth to Elisha and said unto him, knowest thou that the Lord will take away thy master from thy head today? And he said, yea, I know it. Hold ye your peace.
Right, so they were kind of getting into his head a little bit. Yo, you know, like, you've been ministering to Elijah, the Most High's about to take him, man. Like, basically, like, yo, how you feel about that, right? And some of y'all know, sisters know that. They get so how did you feel about this? I was just calling to see what you thought about this brother leaving or that sister that said this. What did you, when you hear what did you feel or what did you think about that stuff? And what did he say? He said, hold your peace. I don't need to talk about that. How I feel about it is between me and the Lord. Go ahead, read on.
And Elijah said unto him, Elisha, tarry here, I pray thee, For the Lord hath sent me to Jericho. And he said, As the Lord liveth, and as thy soul liveth, I will not leave thee. So they came to Jericho.
So he said, listen, I got to go over here and I got to handle some stuff. I need you to tarry here. He was like, I got you. Look at the spirit that Elisha had. That's right. I'm not going to waver. I'm not going to... I'm here. I'm not going to leave you. Go ahead, read.
And the sons of the prophets that were at Jericho came to Elisha and said unto him, Knowest thou that the Lord will take away thy master from thy head today? And he answered, Yea, I know it. Hold your peace.
So they came again. So now you had the sons of the prophet that were at Jericho. So now he was at Jericho and they came to him. Boy, you know that your master's going to go today? He's like, yo, just hold your peace. Don't worry, right? Again, they're trying to sow doubt, fear, and discord into him, right? Elisha was stronger than that. He was mentally strong, emotionally strong. He wasn't going to deal with that. Go ahead, read on.
And Elijah said unto him, Tarry, I pray thee here, for the Lord hath sent me to Jordan. And he said, As the Lord liveth, and as thy soul liveth, I will not leave thee. And they too went on.
Go ahead.
And 50 men of the sons of the prophets went and stood to view afar off. And they too stood by Jordan. And Elijah took his mantle, and wrapped it together, and smote the waters. And they were divided hither and thither, so that they too went over on dry ground.
So what, Moses isn't the only one that split water, all right? Moses split the Red Sea, but Elijah was able to do it as well. And I believe later you read Elisha did it too with Elijah's mantle, right? So go ahead, read on.
And it came to pass, when they were gone over, that Elijah said unto Elisha, Ask what I shall do for thee, before I be taken away from thee.
So he was, listen, I want to do something for you. You've ministered unto me. You've been loyal. Before I be taken from you, before the Lord takes me up, right? What should I do for you? Go ahead.
And Elisha said, I pray thee, let a double portion of thy spirit be upon me.
And it wasn't for vanity. Understanding Elisha's spirit, it wasn't for vanity. This man, listen, there's no coincidence that it's showing you how bad Elijah was, right? That he parted water. And Elisha asked him for a double portion of that type of spirit. And it wasn't for vanity's sake. But listen to the response. Go ahead.
And he said, Thou hast asked a hard thing.
He said, you asked a hard thing. It's a hard thing. Because if you're asking it in sincerity, everything that comes behind that, it's a hard thing to be a leader in Israel. It's a hard thing to say that you want a double portion. I'll tell you, I'd be scared to ask for a double portion of Bishop's spirit. I wouldn't know that I'm capable of handling. Only the Lord knows. Right? And it's not like I think little of myself. I'm pretty confident. I know where I stand. But the respect I have for that, and the understanding and the way that man, because to be double of what he is means nobody would ever see me. Like I'll be constantly involved in work for the Most High, like nothing else, right? I mean, to be double of that, he said, bro, you're asking for a hard thing. Go ahead.
Nevertheless, if thou see me when I am taken from thee, it shall be so unto thee. But if not, it shall not be so.
So he said, when the Lord comes to take me, because Elijah didn't die, right? He was taken, right? He said, if you're able to see me when that happens, then that means you're going to get a double portion of my spirit. He goes, and if you don't, then that means it's not so. Meaning, the Lord's going to see if you're worthy even to receive that, right? I want to deal with the hard thing. Give me Romans 9:1. I'll tell you the first part of being a leader and why it's a hard thing. And we're going to come back to 2 Kings because I want to go down to 15. But let me give you Romans 9:1. And there's a lot of reasons why, but I'm going to touch on a few of them, why it's a hard thing. Go ahead.
The book of Romans, chapter 9, verse 1. I say the truth in Christ, I lie not. My conscience also bearing me witness in the Holy Ghost, that I have great heaviness and continual sorrow in my heart.
As a leader, there's a heaviness and there's a sorrow. Any leader that really cares, it is hard for the people. All right, go ahead, read.
For I wish that myself were accursed from Christ, for my brethren, my kinsmen according to the flesh.
Because Paul understood what the end was going to hold. He saw what the future was going to be like. He saw this nonsense that's going on the internet being played out. All right? He saw it all. And he said, I wish I could take that upon me. That's why to say that you want a double portion, to be a leader, is a hard thing. How many are willing to say that you take the suffering of all your people on you? That's a level that many of us aren't ready to rise to. And it's okay if you're not. It's better to know that than try to do it and bring more chaos to the situation. But the point is that the 144, if you think you're one of those, they have that spirit. They have that level where they understand that they in this for the people. They understand what the Lord requires of them. And they understand that it's a hard thing. The walk is, you've heard me say this, but the walk is hard by yourself without being a leader. The stuff that we deal with alone, hell, even before this truth, the way the world sees us was tough. And now you come on that and you're against all that the world stands for. And then on top of that, you're saying you're going to take the responsibility of leading the greatest nation, that of the righteous of them, that they'll scarcely make it. That's like saying, man, all right, I'm going to take it, I'll put it in a job perspective, right? You know, you got these people that come to restaurants to fix them up, right? They're like professional. We're going to turn this thing around, right? You saw, what was the one with the John Tapper, the bar one? He comes in and he cleans house and all this other stuff, right? So think about it spiritually. So that's like saying, listen, I'm going to be that guy that you call when things need to be fixed. And I'm going to come in, and I'm going to change this, and I'm going to do that, and I'm going to do this, that, and the other. And that's not easy. Why? Because you're going to offend people, you're going to hurt people, some people ain't going to agree with you, some people ain't going to see the vision, some people are never going to acknowledge it. When you do bad, it's your fault. When you do good, it's somebody else's. You're going to get the phone calls in the middle of the night, you're going to lose sleep. Remember, Paul said that he had great sorrow for what he saw for his people. Some of y'all say you down for the people and you love your people, and that's not true. On the surface it is, but it's because you don't understand the depths of what that love entails. Everybody, if I ask any man in here, do you want to be part of the 144? Each and every one of you would say yes. And that's a hard thing if you say that. Because that's the same thing like asking for the double portion of Elijah's spirit. You don't know, you don't know. It's a hard thing to be part of that number. It's not a light thing. Remember the parable of the talents. It's going to be based on what you do and what you put forth. And if you try to sit here and say, I'm going to do this alone and by myself and for myself, you're going to be rebuked as a wicked servant. Because that's what the parable was. Get me Ezekiel 3:3. Here's another reason it's a hard thing. Because let me tell you something. I've said this before. Being a leader in Israel, in a carnal sense, in a worldly sense, it's the most unrewarding, unthankful. It don't matter that you get your sandwich before one brother, or you might get a drink, or every now and then, you know, you might get, you know, something. Because that's like the only thing I can think of that sometimes you're like, oh, I'm starving. I'm glad I get to eat now and not have to wait 20 minutes, right? Or maybe you get, you know, or maybe a brother will iron my garment, right? That's staying with me or something like that. And Ryan does that sometimes. We'll be like, okay, I ain't gonna fight it. Here you go. My garment. It's all right. You know? So, right? You know, so maybe you get that. But other than that, it's not. It's thankless, right? It's thankless. You're on the spotlight. You're in a spiritual sense. You're accountable. But spiritually, right, there is a reward for it. But let me read Ezekiel 3:3.
The book of Ezekiel, chapter 3 and verse 3. And he said unto me, Son of man, cause thy belly to eat, and fill thy bowels with this roll that I gave thee. Then did I eat, and it was in my mouth as honey for sweetness.
The other reason it's a hard thing is because the knowledge that you have, the way the Most High opens up the spirit in you, all right, as you're striving for that double portion, that seed in the 144, right, putting in those works, is the anguish you feel sometimes understanding here, right? So it's sweet, right? He says, I ate this knowledge and I had it, and it was as honey for sweetness. John also did something similar, but I want you to see it's bittersweet being a leader. Read Revelations 10 and 9. I want 9 through 11. It's a hard thing. Well, he said, damn, Elisha, you want a double portion of my spirit? Revelations 10 and 9.
The book of Revelation, chapter 10 and verse 9. And I went unto the angel and said unto him, Give me the little book. And he said unto me, Take it and eat it up, and it shall make thy belly bitter, but it shall be in thy mouth sweet as honey.
It sounds wonderful to say, I'm going to be part of the 144. I want that seat. Yes, I want that double portion. Yes, I want to be in that leadership role. I want to do this. Yes, I'll take that responsibility on. It tastes sweet. He said, but in your belly, it'll be bitter. It's going to go down smooth, and once it hits the gut, it's going to be a lot to deal with. It's a hard thing to be in this walk. Read.
And I took the little book out of the angel's hand and ate it up. And it was in my mouth sweet as honey. And as soon as I had eaten it, my belly was bitter.
Come on.
And he said unto me, thou must prophesy again before many peoples, and nations, and tongues, and kings.
Right, because of the responsibility. I mean, there's so much that goes into what makes it a hard thing. I'm just touching on some of it, all right? There's so much that goes into that. Let's go back to 2 Kings 2 and read 10 again. And I want to go all the way down to 15.
2 Kings chapter 2 and verse 10. And he said, thou hast asked a hard thing. Nevertheless, if thou see me when I am taken from thee, it shall be unto thee. But if not, it shall not be so.
Come on.
And it came to pass, as they still went on and talked, that behold, there appeared a chariot of fire and horses of fire, and parted them both asunder. And Elijah went up by a whirlwind into heaven.
And you know, I mean, we glaze over that real quick, but you know, I think I'm gonna have San Diego Bez draw this image, bro, because that thing is heavy, man. I want that like on my wall, like yeah, like I gotta do like a poster or a shirt or something with that, because that thing is heavy. He said you saw the chariot of fire and flaming horses, and they parted, and Elijah went up in a whirlwind. I want to see like what his interpretation of that is, bro. That thing is heavy. Because I can't draw. It'll look like a stick figure flying in the air. It's not going to look right. Go ahead, read.
And Elisha saw it, and he cried, my father, the chariot of Israel, and the horsemen thereof. And he saw him no more.
And you know, to this day, I remember this verse. Because we were in Paulding, right? In 1080. No, we went 1088. We were 1088. And Bishop was emphasizing, you have to understand the anguish and the love that Elisha had, right? And he said, and he cried, right? And nobody was getting it. And I went up and I got all dramatic and I cried. I was like, no, right? Like you got to think about it, right? Think of a movie scene. All this great thing, the chariot, the horses, and you know, he's probably there, like, ah, he got on his knees and everything, right? I did it like Chappelle. Ah, I'm sorry. But think, you know, you got to create the visual of these things. So you can understand the level of loyalty, what type of man Elisha was as he ministered unto Elijah, the things he saw and the respect he had for the work that Elijah was doing. And remember, these guys were coming to him and messing with him, and you got to understand, because he was being tried to see if he would cave before that moment happened. And obviously he knew it was going to impact them, and that's why he said, listen, I know what's going to go down. It was like, hold your peace. I don't need to hear that nonsense, because you know, it's between me and the Lord, and I know. And it was revealed in that moment. And he says, and he screamed, right? And he said, my father, the chariot of Israel and the horsemen thereof, right? And he said, and he saw him no more. Go ahead, read on.
And he took hold of his clothes and rent them in two pieces.
Right, so I visualize him like going to his knees and ripping his stuff, and no, right? Scream of anguish. Go ahead, read on.
And he took up also the mantle of Elijah that fell from him, and went back and stood by the bank of Jordan. And he took the mantle of Elijah and that fell from him, and smote the waters, and said, where is the Lord God of Elijah? And when he also had smitten the waters, they parted hither and thither, and Elijah went over.
And Elisha went over. So Elisha was able to part the waters. The Most High gave him what he asked for. But because the Lord knew he could bear it. The Lord knew. He was that reserve. Remember, there's a remnant. And while he was telling him that there's yet a remnant, he never realized that he was really part of that number in that way. He never got big enough to realize that he would have that. So you got to understand the characteristics, right? You have to have that valiantness of David, that masculinity, that warrior spirit of those mighty men, and at the same time still have spiritually and mentally the mindset that Elisha had, right? Because Elisha wasn't a soft man. All right, go ahead, read on. Did we read 15?
And when the sons of the prophets which were to view at Jericho saw him, they said, The spirit of Elijah doth rest on Elisha. And they came to meet him, and bowed themselves to the ground before him.
And they recognized it on him, and they said, hey, we need to roll with this man. Let me get Sirach 24 and 34. Sound effects.
The book of Sirach, chapter 24 and verse 34.
This is another reason it's a hard thing. So I said I'd ask each and every man if he wants to be 144. Who wouldn't? Of course. Understand what that entails. Understand what it takes to really man up. Read this.
Behold, that I have not labored for myself only, but for all them that seek wisdom.
Right. I don't sit up here and prepare a class because, you know, I need to, well, spiritually I need to, we all need to hear it, but I'm not doing it for me. I'll just read for myself if that's the case, right? I have to pick and select. Those of us who teach online, like, we have to think, right? Hey, you know, as the Spirit moves us, what topic we're going to go over, what we're going to speak about. It says you're not laboring for yourself only, but for all them that seek wisdom. You have to be selfless as a leader to a point. It is, you cannot be self-serving and selfish and be a leader in Israel. There's a level of selflessness. That is an adult behavior. That is a man of the Most High's behavior. Contrary-wise, a child would be selfish, right? I don't want to share. I don't want this. Me first. And you can't have that mentality. So, you know, going back to when you think about childish things, when you're thinking of yourself, you're not thinking of the people. You're not thinking of what you're called to do. Your sense of morality is more self-centered than it is based on the need of the whole. Get me Sirach 6 and 17.
The book of Sirach, chapter 6 and verse 17. Whoso feareth the Lord shall direct his friendship aright. For as he is, so shall his neighbor be also.
This is another way that you man up. You direct your friendship aright. Because it says, as you are, so is your neighbor also. So you can't tell me that you're friends with the gossiping brother or sister and that you're not like that too. You can't tell me that, listen, the association is going to be there. And it says if you're right, you direct that friendship to right. Meaning they're going to be more, you're going to try to steer them to be more like yourself in those good qualities. Right? This is why I can't be close with some people. You're not a friend to me if you're not the same in this mentality. Some of y'all just here to be, I mean, it shows. You won't make time for Men of Valor and Camp 101, but for some reason, your obligations aren't there when it comes time for a social event. You're able to get the time away to do that. But you can't get the time away when it comes to daily things that are needful for the body. Even if you have that mindset, and nobody should, that you're above camp or you're above Men of Valor or whatever it is that we're doing, if you are that good, if you're selfless, you can be that example that somebody can covet your gifts and you can teach them that. So your absence, because you're thinking, well, I don't need that because I'm shit hot, part of my language, right? But you can be there to be the example and you have something that you can impart onto people. And it's not always by actively teaching. Maybe just somebody seeing your effort. The brother next to you is banging out 8 push-ups and he don't think he can get 2 more. And maybe you were motivated and you tell him, no, you got it. I couldn't do 10 last week either. Look, I just banged out 10. Whatever it is, something simple. Brother can't remember a scripture, and maybe there's a prompt that you give him to help him out. Whatever it might be. Maybe just your spirit is strong enough that, hey, okay, I'm able to roll better. You know, there's certain brothers that you have as a reader, or that you have next to you as a co-teacher, whatever, and it makes your whole thing better. Because there's a like spirit, or you're on the same page there. And these are the different dynamics that a leader thinks about. You're not so short-sighted, you're not so self-serving that you say that I don't need to be there, I don't need to do that. Or worse, others can do it. Somebody else will handle it. That's the worst. That's worse than any of them, I think. It's okay, someone else will do it. Someone else will do it. That's terrible. That's terrible. Jump to verse 32.
Verse 32. My son, if thou wilt, thou shalt be taught. And if thou wilt apply thy mind, thou shalt be prudent. If thou love to hear, thou shalt receive understanding. And if thou bow thine ear, thou shalt be wise. Stand in the multitude of the elders, and cleave unto him that is wise. Be willing to hear every godly discourse, and let not the parable of understanding escape thee.
You know, the main point I want to get out of this is having a willing spirit, all right? These are some of the same steps that you need to be like Elisha. Everything here is that this type of individual has a willing spirit. You don't got to pull them or grab them or gripe them in, you know, like, you got to fight with them to do something. They have a willing spirit. But I like this last part where it says, be willing to hear every godly discourse. Some people, whatever it is, listen, you're not leadership material if you don't think listening to some scriptures coming out, period, is not valuable to you. Every godly discourse doesn't say from the leader, from an elder, from your favorite teacher. It means if there's godly discourse, you have an interest in it. Because you understand the value and the power of the words of the Lord. Right? Go ahead, read on.
And if thou seest a man of understanding, get thee betimes unto him, and let thy foot wear the steps of his door.
Come on.
Let thy mind be upon the ordinances of the Lord, and meditate continually in his commandments. He shall establish thine heart, and give thee wisdom at thy own desire.
This is why it's so important that you don't let the cares of this world, right? The Israelite that's planted among thorns, the lust of other things, choke the word out of you. Because there's levels to that too. And somebody, it says, beware lest you stand, right? Like that you're going to fall from it. You can't stand there and think that you're so bold that you're impenetrable to this stuff. I was blasting the brothers on the New York group meet because one of the brothers, he writes like a weekly note. And it's usually pretty cool. He's done it long enough. In the beginning, I was like kind of eh. But then he does it enough. He does like this inspirational stuff like during the week or whatever. And then he writes, let's keep our sister in prayer. I'm like, bro, where have you been? Like, what are you talking about, our sister? Like basically like rest in peace type of garbage. And I was like, listen, I said, you know why? He was like, oh, I thought the news said that. I said, no, the news didn't say that. The problem is that you get your news from social media. I said, you brothers forgot that the scripture says evil communication corrupts good manners. You think that you're above being exposed to that type of stuff and that you can handle it and that it's not affecting you. You can be sick and not have symptoms, right? So what's so different spiritually? You could have a problem spiritually. You could be affected by the evil communication and there might not be an outward showing of it. Symptoms and illness are two different things. They're not mutually exclusive of each other. So I said, you brothers, man, it's like you live on social media. You got to get your minds right or whatever. Focus on what's right. Get yourself together. We're reading here, it says meditate continually on his commandments, not on social media, not on other stuff, and he shall establish thy heart. He will stabilize your mind. It don't matter what's going on in your life. What are you called for? Do you want to be 144? You think you're going to be able to give those excuses when you stand that day in the judgment seat? And the Lord say, why didn't you do this, this, and this? Do you realize that your lack of this, this, and this hindered this? And you're going to say, wow, I was dealing with this. My pinky toe hurt that day, Lord. I couldn't deal. It was unbearable. That ain't going to stand. You want to be able to be found worthy in that day. None of us are worthy yet. Many are called, but few are actually chosen. And you won't know who's chosen until Christ returns. I think people get called and chosen confused. Everybody in this room is called. Nobody knows who's chosen. Not a one of us. And that's sobering. That's part of being sober-minded. And I think if more people walk that way with the fear of loss, like the spirit that David and Solomon had, Lord, don't take your presence from me, we would treat this thing like the precious thing that it is. There's a lot of fake brothers and sisters in this walk. And the scariest thing is that y'all don't even realize that y'all fake. You don't even know that you're fake yet. I'll tell you, the levels of this thing is like insane. That's why I said, oh, you want a double portion of what Elijah had? And Elijah was in the spirit where he interceded for the people? You don't know what you're asking for. So, go ahead and let's read Philippians 2 and 3.
Philippians chapter 2 and verse 3. Let nothing be done through strife or vainglory, But in lowliness of mind, let each esteem other better than themselves.
And I've gone over this before. This is another thing that's hard. And as a leader, that's something that we got to look at as well. It says, let nothing be done through strife or vain glory. But we have to have a lowliness of mind that we each esteem others better than ourselves. Because everybody, guess what? Even those wicked who wind up becoming manifest that are among us, they're necessary. It's like faith is not that hard when you start to look at things that way. Now, our problem is that we have expectations, and there are expectations, and not the Lord's expectations. Right? And expectations in anything sets you up for disappointment. And you get disappointed, and then you get bitter, salty, right? And then all types of other stuff come up. Where if your mind would have been striving to be like the mind of the Lord, trying to grow up into that fullness and stature of Christ, into that Godhead mentality, I'm not saying it gets, like nothing's going to come at you. It's not as hard. It's not as hard. But the scary part is, when those things get easy, the Most High throw harder things at you. Right? It's like, you know, you're dodging rocks. Okay, now I'm going to throw bigger rocks. Next thing you know, okay, here's the boulder rolling down the hill. Hey, deal with that. What do I do? Right? And you got to pray that you're in the spirit enough to be built up with it, right? To handle that. Where we at?
Verse 3.
Go ahead. Read it again.
Let nothing be done through strife or vainglory, but in lowliness of mind let each esteem other better than themselves.
Get me 1 John 3 and 10. I think that's what I wanted. I don't know why I had 3 John. You can bring something out. You want to bring out 2 John?
No, it's 2 John 10.
Oh, okay. All right. Go ahead.
The book of 1 John, chapter 3 and verse 10. In this the children of God are manifest, and the children of the devil. Whosoever doeth not righteousness is not of God, neither he that loveth not his brother.
Right, so it's in speaking about esteeming others better, it's not to say just any brother or sister that you just went after that. This goes back to the friend, improving the friend and all that. You have to understand that the children of God are manifest, and so are the children of the devil. Whoso doeth not righteousness is not of God, neither he that loveth not his brother. Read verse 11.
For this is the message that ye heard from the beginning, that we should love one another.
And this goes back to what? That Leviticus 19, right, and 17 and 18. And again, going into the mindset of a leader, being able to man up, you got to call a spade a spade. You got to be able to bring that thing out, right? So at the same time, while you got to esteem others better, you shouldn't be squeamish about calling someone out on something, right? As long as it's in righteousness and it's not some bickering BS, all right? You got to be able to go ahead and make the correction. Get me Matthew 19 and 28. I actually have more than I thought. I got to find a stopping point.
The book of St. Matthew, chapter 19 and verse 28. And Jesus said unto them, Verily I say unto you, that ye which have followed me in the regeneration, when the Son of Man shall sit in the throne of his glory, ye also shall sit upon 12 thrones, judging the 12 tribes of Israel.
And this is what it means to be part of the 144. The 12 are going to have that special seat, right? You're going to have Christ, Elijah, Moses, right? The 12, and then the 144 all behind that, okay? So it says, that's going to be sitting to judge. So when you ask for that seat, when you ask for that authority, that's another level of being selfless, because you're saying, hey, I'm going to sit here, I'm going to deal with matters, I want to be able to understand and judge the people. We went over a few weeks ago, right, Solomon's prayer. I had you guys reading Wisdom of Solomon. I know Tobias been reading it a lot. I saw you posted a lot of questions on it, so he went into it. Getting real deep though, brother. I know, like, some of the stuff is like real plain, but because Wisdom of Solomon is so heavy, he's like, so does this mean on the 5th moon of, the 8th month, that, Solomon meant that you must go out and do that? And I'm like, no, it just means, do this and pray, and that's it. So, I get it though, right? But the point is, I notice these little things. Sometimes y'all in the groups, I may not answer you or whatever. Sometimes I see a question and I want to answer. I'm like, let me see where these brothers is at. Let me see who answers it. And let me see if they answer it correctly. Let me see if a brother trying to be too deep or whatever. And I don't know that you got a full answer for the one you asked this morning. So if you want, I'll talk to you after about it. All right. Read on.
And every one that hath forsaken houses, or brethren, or sisters, or father, or mother, or wife, or children, or lands, for my name's sake, shall receive 100-fold, and shall inherit everlasting life.
Come on.
But many that are first shall be last, and the last shall be first.
So these are all hard things that have to happen. Going back to be like Elisha, he had to leave his family behind, right? And so he cut them off. He bid them farewell. He had a feast with them and everything like that. He didn't say, "The hell with y'all, you devils," right? He just went. But it says that you have to understand that there's a lot of sacrifice in this walk. You can't try to be. We're in this world, but we're not of this world. Christ says, and a lot of us confuse what that means. And we're too much into the cares of this world. We're too much into the other things, and not understanding the significance of the mission. And sometimes for you, that just might mean continuing to work on yourself so you can purge out all that's bothering you, so that then you can be a better vessel for whatever the Lord has manifest to bring out in you, right? I'm not going to be able to get to all of that today, but I was going to, when we do part 2, I'm going to start moving into, right, more of how you obtain to be that way. Up until this point, I've been showing you like the warning signs and stuff like that and expectations. We'll go into a little bit more of that. Let me get Revelations 21 and 12. And I'll stop there until next week. Lord's will. Revelation 21 and 12.
The book of Revelation, chapter 21 and verse 12. And had a wall great and high, and had 12 gates, and at the gates 12 angels, and the names written thereon, which are the names of the 12 tribes of the children of Israel.
Right, so it says the names of the 12 tribes of the children of Israel. Come on.
On the east 3 gates, on the north 3 gates, on the south 3 gates, and on the west 3 gates.
Go ahead.
And the wall of the city had 12 foundations, and in them the names of the 12 apostles of the Lamb.
So when it says, when we read in Matthew, when it talks about the 12 sitting there, while there's a gate for every tribe, it says the foundations. All right, that's the honor that the apostles have. They're the foundation of the 12 tribes, has their names on it. So there's levels to this whole thing, right? And it goes to show you the level, even with their deficiencies. Paul's going to have a place. Peter, even though his denial, he's going to have a place. They're on the foundations of it. So the 12, all right, the 12 apostles is what it's talking about there when it says the 12 of the Lamb, all right? By the gates, and then on the foundations, their names all around it. And they're going to be sitting there. Like, you're going to go through those gates. Like, you're going to have to go before Christ and all of them. Right? Some of y'all get nervous, like, for some of us, like, for judgment. Like, can you imagine that? Like, the apostles that strived unto blood with Christ? Like, we ain't ready. We ain't ready. Some people, we ain't ready, bro. We ain't ready. You know? Anyway, I got more that I want to go into, all right? But it'll take too long, and I don't want to get cut off. I pray you took good notes. So we ended there. I put a little note. Lord's will, we'll start next week, and we'll go into the other half of it. All right? Shalom.
Shalom.
Shalom, Israel. I'm Elder Nathaniel of Israel United in Christ. YouTube likes to shut our channels down, as some of you have noticed, ever so often. Subscribing to join IUIC will assure you will always stay connected to our YouTube accounts. We want to do our best to make sure this truth gets out. Please click and join our subscriber YouTube channel called Join IUIC to stay linked to all of our videos. So again, please make sure you subscribe to this Join IUIC channel to get your latest updates from all our YouTube channels. Shalom.